Hey McDistrict, this is Brian. We're coming at you with our next in our series of role-playing videos, and this time we're going to be covering how to properly promote and sell these steak knives. Obviously everyone needs to have some kind of table knife or steak knife in their kitchen and with their set. It's so important, you got to have that. This is the thing they're going to use every single day. They're going to use this more than they use almost any other knife that we make. In fact, they're going to use this more than any other knife that we ever make. And the table knife is great. There's nothing wrong with selling table knives. In fact, every demo you do, it doesn't matter what they buy, you should always offer them some kind of upsell or some kind of good deal to add on a few extra table knives. You cannot have too many of these things. But you guys have to understand that a lot of our customers had asked for many years for a larger option. They wanted that traditional restaurant style steak knife. And so, getting a chance to actually introduce the kind of classic steak knife has been a huge win for us. So in this video, we want to get a chance to talk about how to promote the differences. Now, most of you watching this probably don't have a steak knife, so I'm going to do the scripts and approaches without having one. You don't have to have one to sell them. That's for darn sure. But I did just want to show you how glorious they are, man. Look at that full tang on there. You can compare the two size-wise, and it's, I don't even know what to tell you. It's adorable. So we'll come right back in a sec. We'll hit the scripts and approaches, and so you guys can start selling all your sets with steak knives. So you're going to be able to find the script for actually selling and promoting the steak knives. This is not in your manual, but it's a little more advanced. We'll try to link to the script just below this video, so that way you'll be able to pull this up and review it. Now, a couple things I want to make sure you understand. The most effective way to sell steak knives is to position them as an upsell. Okay, so basically what that means is you're going to wrap up the order for whatever set they want to get. And this is going to be, think of it upselling almost like an add-on. Okay, and upselling is really a topic for another video, but that's something that our top people do on every single demo. I would encourage you guys to try it out with steak knives to learn that technique. So my advice is this: no matter what set they pick out, for me, if it's a Galley, Ultimate, Homemaker, Signature, any of the four main sets, I'm always going to try and close it with steak knives. But even on studio sets, it doesn't matter what, steak knives are always a reasonable option and something you want to be able to throw out there. So when we talk about upsells, the idea is this: they've already decided that they're going to buy. Okay, they've already committed to buying something, and so really the important thing is to understand the timing. I literally wait until they've said yes. Excuse me, guys. They pick out their set, and sometimes even I'm writing up the order or they've given me their credit card, and that's when I'm going to transition into this. It's kind of this, hey, by the way, type spirit and mentality. You want to be careful not to overwhelm customers with options before they've actually said yes, okay? So if you can tell they kind of want the Homemaker and you're just working through things, understand that throwing a ton of wrinkles on that, even though we're just trying to help, a lot of times, we just introduce, too much, and a confused mind doesn't decide, okay? So you want to just get them to that point of saying yes to whatever set they selected. I don't care which one. Then you transition into the script, and you're going to upsell the steak knives. So I'm going to do this assuming you didn't have a steak knife here, and I'll just show you in my blue book how I do this. All right, so Mrs. Jones, just so you know, you do have two options with that set for table knives or steak knives. Now, the table knives are going to be the smaller one that we cut the leather with, and the steak knife is another really popular option. So let me just really quickly tell you about both. Now, both are made with the same best-in-class materials and the highest grade of steel. Both have that famous double D edge, and so they're going to stay sharp, excuse me, for years and years and years to come. And both are covered by that great forever guarantee. And so these will be the last ones you ever buy the rest of your life. I'm confident you're going to be happy with either one, but I do want to share why so many of our customers prefer the steak knives nowadays, because I'd hate for you to see them later and not feel like you got all the info. So a couple things that my customers really prefer about the steak knives. And I'm just going to open this up, Mrs. Jones, so you can be looking just to get that comparison there size-wise. All right, and I just put the blue book down for them. All right, so Mr. Jones, a couple things. First off, they have that larger form factor. A lot of our customers kind of prefer the slightly larger form factor of the steak knife. With that great handle, they're going to be perfect for smaller hands, but they just feel more substantial for people who have just kind of bigger hands. My brother is like 6'2", and so he's kind of a big guy with big hands, and he just loves the feel of those great steak knives. It feels more substantial. It's kind of like getting a TV. You could get by with a 24-inch, but most of my clients prefer something that, it's just going to be a little bit bigger. I think appearance-wise, the steak knives are a little bit dressier, which is kind of nice. You can definitely use them with confidence every single day. You don't have to worry about beating them up. But the reality is when you have that special occasion, they're absolutely, restaurant quality. They're ready to really impress people, as that high quality set. And also some of my customers personally, they just feel that the appearance of those kind of matches their expectation for what they want to have out of their high quality set of cutlery. Price wise, even though the steak knives, they have 3 times as much steel as the table knives, the good news is they don't cost 3 times as much. The company literally just kind of does the difference in materials and they sort of eat the rest. So, you're talking about, it's like 39 versus 69. So yeah, it is a few bucks extra, but it's definitely not, it's not as big a price difference as most our customers expect. But really for the function, honestly, Mrs. Jones, there aren't any jobs that the table knives do that the steak knives won't. You know what I mean? So like anything you would do with your table knife, you can do with your steak knife. But I've had a few times where, if I only had the table knife, it might be just a little too small. So 9 times out of 10, either one works fine. But, that once in a while, it is a little bit nice having that slightly larger knife. In fact, my wife tends to grab those as like extra trimmers, just an extra utility knife if she's just getting a few jobs done. So, my advice is if you think you're going to want them eventually and it fits in the budget, it just makes sense to do it now when I can offer you a little bit of a bigger discount. And so considering that we're going to get you this set to use for the next 30, 40, 50, 60 years, what would you prefer? Do you want the table knives or would you like to look at the larger steak knives? That's it. Okay. From there, they're going to ask about the price. They're going to say, well, what would the price difference be? That's a totally a fair question. So for me, sometimes I will just add 30 bucks, if they're getting a homemaker, 30 bucks times 8 is, 240 or whatever that is. Sometimes I'll just add 240 to the price tag and then just sort of make it work. But depending on how things break down, you might end up having to do like one of them for free. It's not necessarily going to be mathematically perfect, but it's still going to get you a bigger sale. But it doesn't matter what set they look at. You're just going to then take the basic set, version of that package, and then you'll just do the price for say 6 steak knives. So a galley with steak knives is really just a basic galley plus 6 steak knives. Okay. Now it's a really important thing to understand. Whatever they pick out, table knives or steak knives, I say what I said there. It takes me an extra 90 seconds on my demo, and what I can tell y'all is 75% of the sets I've sold in the last 6 months have been with steak knives. Okay, and that's not a small sample size. We're talking about about $60,000 worth of Cutco, and a ton of that CPO was actually steak knives, getting people to add to it. But whatever they pick out, you want to validate and reassure them. Whatever they select, you say, hey, that's a great choice. You guys are going to love that. You're going to be so happy with those steak knives. Hey, that's a great choice, Mrs. Jones. It sounds like the table knives are just a better fit for your family. And down the line, if you ever need those larger ones, we'll get you taken care of. So you want to be super reassuring and just let them know that you are in here for them. That's for sure. Now, this is so important to understand. The steak knives only fit in the block for the ultimate set and the signature set. They will not fit in the slots at the bottom of a homemaker, a galley, an essentials. They're too large. Those blocks aren't made to hold that. Okay, so you do have to let the customer know that, but you don't make it a big deal. You just make it very casual. Okay, you just say, hey, Mrs. Jones, just so you know, for that homemaker and steak knives, the steak knives are a little too wide. It would make the homemaker block just bigger than you're going to want it to be. So I'm going to make sure I get it to you like this, where it's going to be flush, and then the steak knives will just go in a drawer because 8 of those on the counter is a little overkill, and you'll just pull them out when you need them. Okay, so you make it very casual. Don't make it a big deal. Don't apologize for it. That's for their safety. Y'all, the steak knives would stick out too far, and the block won't hold them. In fact, if you do an empty homemaker block with 8 steak knives, the company will even flag the order and call the customer just to let them know, hey, those aren't going to fit. So there's nothing wrong with doing a homemaker with steak knives. I do most of my homemakers with steak knives. You just want to make sure that you explain to the customer, hey, you're going to get this beautiful block like this, and then the steak knives will just sit neatly in a drawer ready to be used. Okay. All right. So an extra little bonus tip on the steak knives, and the last cookware set I sold with an 8-pack of steak knives. I sold a flatware chest recently. I got them to add on a few steak knives. Like, steak knives are something you should promote on every single demo. It's a great tool when you're seeing Cutco owners. It's a really exciting thing. That's a pretty good CPO that you can offer to them. And again, a lot of times they're going to have a ton of enthusiasm for it. So my advice for you, I'd give you 2 last tips. Number 1, I would set a contest with your manager to get a steak steak knife. Once people feel it and they hold it, man, it is hard to go back. I'm not going to lie. Even after the steak knives came out, I waited a few years before I upgraded my kitchen. But boy, once I've done it, there's just no going back, man. I love my steak knives. They're so great. I still use my table knives. It's not that I threw them away or anything, but it's hard to go back once you have it. Okay, the other big thing is just a little bonus tip. Once people say they need steak knives, whether it's on their set or if you're just adding steak knives on based on their wish list, here's what I always say. Mr. Jones, most people on the steak knives either need 8, 12, or 16. What's the right number for your family? Okay, and I find a lot of my team sort of begins and ends with a 4-pack, and honestly, guys, 4 is just it's not enough for most families. So by positioning it that way, you're taking advantage of that sort of comparison effect. Hey, what would be best for you? Do you think 8, 12, or 16? And then again, they're not usually going to do 16, and most people don't usually do 12. Although a fair amount of my clients do. But then all of a sudden you'll get a lot of packs for 8 instead of 6, and 8 is a pretty good number for most families. All right, so guys, again, we'll try to link to the script right here, but it's pretty simple as long as you understand the concepts, understand that you don't introduce this, you introduce it in your demo, you show them the steak knife in the demo, but you don't really try to close them on it until they've decided on their set, and then you're just very reassuring with whatever they pick out. If you guys do that, you'll be amazed how many extra steak knives you sell. So, until next time.